He's not a bat, he's a man who fights crime. And we're gonna watch him fight for a minute at a time. With John and Niall and a guest who doesn't rhyme. It's Bat Minute!
Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Bat Minute and Robin. This is the podcast where we've got it in regards to talking about each minute of Batman and Robin, 1 minute at a time. I am one of the hosts, Niall McGowan.
I am your other host, John Parker, and, it don't take a computer genius to enjoy me. It does help.
It takes a computer genius to make this show, let me tell you. Oh, the post-production work, please, Louis.
And trying to figure out the new software for uploading it. Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. But today, though, we are joined, as we frequently are, by a guest. This is a guest many people may know already. One of the hosts of Alphabetical, ABC Devo. Sorry, almost flubbed that there. ABCD TOS. And, of course, the Star Wars Minute. It is Pete the Retailer.
Hello. I wasn't sure if I should have interrupted you, when you say, it doesn't take a computer genius. I should be like, no, I got it, or whatever.
Oh, feel free to interrupt at any given moment.
But listen, hearing you list my credits, realize I should make my next podcast. I should just make completely unpronounceable, just to mess with people introducing me.
So a couple of times I actually have tried to look up for the listeners page for ABCDTOS, and I frequently type in ABCTOS. And then remember, no, it's ABCDTOS.
TOS. And I don't know. That it just flowed, but I guess from ABC Devo, ABC, I don't know. It seemed like it flowed better to me, and we all just agreed as soon as it came out.
I agree. It's like the song. It's like the program, A, B, C, D, T, O, S.
It's got flow to it.
I should remember that. Yeah, that's actually a good way to remember it.
You have to sing it. You have to sing all my titles. That's the
Star Wars.
Is this going to be a musical episode?
It could be.
Hey, we're here today to talk about minutes 1112. Not 1112. Minute 112.
What's happened to you, Niall? As we get close to the end of every movie, we completely lose our minds.
I understand.
Yeah, this is the last. We got 15 minutes left of this thing. Oh, we're done. We're pretty much done with it. But yeah, this opens with a Dark Knight tumbling, and it ends a minute later with some computer fumbling. But yeah, Pete, up front, because of the, let's just say divisive reputation of Batman and Robin, we do have to ask the guests what their opinion of the movie is, because you kind of need to gauge what angle they're coming at this from. So what is your opinion of Batman and Robin? Because obviously, it was your first appearance on the show, and we were clearly saving the best movie for you.
I feel for all the guests that we had on for the first time during Attack of the Clones now, because this. Yeah, I had a realization watching this minute. I was like, wait a minute. I don't think I've seen this whole thing. And because when this movie came out, I was working retail in a nerd store and sold a ton of, or tried to sell a ton of Batman and Robin merchandise. They really leaned heavily into the promotional stuff and, Pogs and these ridiculous vinyl dolls and all these other things that they came out with. And I was steeped in it at the time. And I know I've seen, bits and pieces here and there, but I was like, I don't think I've ever just sat and watched this whole thing.
Well, I think you probably... you're probably and us are not in the age range of who they were going for, and also you had your nerd cred to think,
right? Yeah, it's true.
You can't enjoy this Batman.
Yes, I'm a discerning Batman enjoyer, and I don't, I can't. Although I do, I don't know. I go back and forth because on paper, I do love when Batman is goofy and campy. I think my two favorite live act. Well, not live act. My two favorite Batman movies are the the original Adam West Batman movie and Lego Batman. I think is the best Batman movie.
No.
And I like it when Batman is like kind of fun and goofy and when it doesn't take itself too seriously. But then I watched some of this and I'm like, but there's another component to it, besides the spirit of it. There's also like, I really, and again, this just could be, age range and stuff like that, but I get really turned off to the look of movies from this era, this kind of late 90s to early 80s, kind of like the way that there's the compositions and the lighting of like, there a lot of movies from around here just look sickly to me, and I don't like it.
I get that totally. Yeah, like some of this movie, some of it looks good, and then some of it just I want to be sick.
Yeah.
So you know,
and I think it's not to jump on. I love a lot of people in the visual effects field and the computer graphics industry, and I think that there are important steps that had to be taken, but a lot of stuff, just the weird way that things don't fit together, like computer. I don't know if it was computer compositing or something was going on, like where there's like a mismatch in tone between what's going on. So it's mainly the effects shots. Like a lot of the stuff where it's just here, like people talking or these, I like these, odd angles and lighting and Schumacher does a lot of that in his other stuff. Like, and I like that. I like, that aspect of it, the look, the feel, the cinematography is good, but then there's just these weird effects things happening that take me out of it, and it looks kind of gross.
I mean, particularly at the end of this minute, there's one that's very egregious in that regard, where it's like, well, what is this? Like, how did this happen? But we have discovered, though, because obviously with the reputation of the movie as it is just for being bad in terms of like, the cheesiness of the one-liners and the performances of this, that, and the other. Like there is a lot of genuine sort of like, that's kind of like incompetently done though as well. Like there's certain elements where you're like, but the one at the beginning of this minute as well, where it's like, they weren't even trying with this. Yeah. Like there's just continuity errors where you're like, I mean, come on, man. Like just
that's the real problem. Like this movie is, I think it's fine on paper.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of good elements to it. I'm the same as you. I like a fun Batman, a little bit of silly. That's why I like the Tim Burton one, to be honest, because it looks like it's going to be serious, and then you've got a penguin army with rockets on their back. It's ridiculous. So I like all of that. There's something missing, and I don't think we've 100% honed in on it yet, even after all these minutes. There's lots of little elements not quite coming together, and it's a shame. Remake this movie.
But yeah, so at the beginning of this, though, speaking of George Clooney,
yes,
we do have him doing what Batman always does in a dire situation. Shoots his grapple up in the air. And it's just, at this point, like we even mentioned at the end of the last minute when, Batgirl had her, like, what do we do now? Pray. And I'm annoyed, too, because when we had a little talk about... Batman and religion, and then the religion of the the actors, and we're like, oh, Alicia Silverstone is very she's very proudly Jewish, and she's actually been bat mitzvahed, and I was annoyed because like there's clearly a bat mitzvah joke
there is
that was right there, and we didn't do it, but I'm putting it in now, baby.
Got to mention it a minute later.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if there'd be some kind of ceremony involved with that, but like make it up in your own mind, dear listeners.
We get the grappling hook again, as you say, which, I mean, every time he uses this, I despise it. Like, why is it coming out of his wrist? We've discussed this already, but it's going to pull his arm off.
Yeah. There's a Gwen Stacy thing going to go on here. Well, unless it's that, you could have a gradual breaking in the, if it's a really complicated mechanism, you know what I mean? It could shoot the things out and then gradually break on the thing as not to yank your arm out, but still you've already had time for like a conversation and a cup of tea here while you're falling before he even launches the grappling hooks.
Yeah, he doesn't seem too concerned really, does he? He's kind of just casual, like, I'll shoot it when I'm good and ready.
Yeah. That's the thing too, because he's got not, usually Batman, like, oh yeah, grappling hook saves the day. But this time, because I guess it's a sequel, got to be 2 grappling hooks.
Right.
Just just to add in the extra. And it really, this is one of the breaking points for me in that, I don't know how familiar you are with Batman Forever, Pete. But, it's the...
I know the Pogs.
I am going on eBay after this to look up the Pogs. I want to buy a set.
There was like a Tommy Lee Jones slammer that would just nobody ever wanted. Anyway.
Poor Tommy Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if it's still available, I'll happily take it off your hands, of course. But
it's
the
still
thing is,
sat there at the same price.
Yeah. Discounted.
Because though this is the only sequel Joel Schumacher ever made to one of his own movies.
Yeah.
Like, and he mentions it himself, like, oh, they approached him for Lost Boys 2, he wasn't interested. I think Flatliners, they wanted to do a Flatliners 2, and he wasn't interested in that. But this one, he's like, okay, I'll make a sequel to that. But it kind of seems very like, it basically was just the same exact skeleton of Batman Forever in terms of the plot. And it's becomes, at this point to me, because this was like added in and like this, this isn't in the novelization this whole fall. I don't think it's in the script either. I think they put it in after because they're like, make it a bit more like Batman Forever. Because in that movie, you have like opens with, them all sitting up in the Batcave. Well, that one's only Batman, but then there's a fully established, fully formed villain doing a robbery. Then there's an airborne fight like over Gotham City. Then the villain escapes. And then you go to an employee of Wayne Enterprises who's like having crazy whack-a-mole things going on. And then they eventually turn into the new villain. If they're bespeckled and have red hair, even better. Then you get like a new arrival at Wayne Manor who eventually becomes the new sidekick. The 2 villains team up. And then they go, there's a scene towards like 3/4 of the way through where like they become a new partnership. Then they get in some toys, go to fight the main villain. And then Batman Forever ended with them tumbling down, a whole big thing. And, they're going to be gull feeds on the rocks below, as Jim Carrey put it. And it's like, and then Batman used a grappling hook to get them out of it. And it's like, it's the same. Like, at this point, like, it was noticeable a bit before, but I didn't mind. But now it is like, it's just like, what do we do? How do we structure this? It's like, just use the other movie was successful. So just don't change anything.
Do that again. Yeah. Which, I mean, I wonder how much of that is being like, well, the plot of every episode of the TV show was, pretty similar. So like,
that's true. That is,
let's just take that thing, the plot isn't what people are here for. It's just seeing different villains in different ways. Although note it. So like, I don't know if you guys have talked about these, the two scientists here.
Oh yeah.
That they were also in Batman Forever as different characters, and then my brain broke because do you know what, like they're in this movie, they're in Batman Forever, and do you know what the other movie that they're in together?
Falling Down?
Falling Down, which is what they're doing in this minute.
Oh my god!
I was like, what's going on? Like, did I break something? Like,
we didn't even think about that. We've done a whole bonus episode on Falling Down, and we didn't think about that.
Yeah.
They are falling.
They are falling down.
Yeah. It's a little joke Joel Schumacher had on
I
his
guess
part.
so. Yeah.
I looked up Michael Paul Chan, the actor there. Found an interview with him just during the week. I was like, oh, I wonder if he has any info, and not particularly. Like he's on like a one of those NCIS TV shows. He was just talking about that for the most part.
Yeah.
But one of the things he mentioned was that like, he used to be in a band back in the 60s before he was an actor. And like, it was so weird to me because he was like trying to impress the interviewer by being like, yeah, and one of our gigs was a music festival, and it was emceed by Sally Field when she was in The Flying Nun. And it's like, dude, you starred in like an iconic scene with Michael Douglas. Like, him going in now, like, I met Sally Field back in the 60s. It's like,
hey, he can still geek out.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair enough. Like, I enjoyed, repeats of Gidget as well back in the day. Right. But, like, it's just so odd that he's in, like, oh, yeah, I was in a Batman movie. I was in 2 Batman movies. And, like, still trying to be like, yeah, guess what? Who I met way back in the day. Yeah. But one of his other little tidbits was that, oh, yeah, we played a gig for these weird religious people, and it turned out to be the People's Temple. Or the Jim Jones
Right, yeah.
group.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, I hope they didn't offer you a drink while you were there, but
Yeah.
yeah. But that is one. To be fair, that one I would show off at every given opportunity.
Really.
Almost killed by a weird cult. Well, I wasn't almost killed, but I met them once, I guess.
Well, Batman and the Scientists. That sounds like a band itself, actually, doesn't it?
Yeah, there you
Batman
go.
and the Scientists. With them falling, right? It's the hook again. I've got another thing I don't like about this. It's the actual shot of it is very strange to me. It's very still, calm, collected. Considering he's plummeting, when you actually see the forearm there firing it, it just looks like he's holding his arm out. He's not falling in that shot. They've gone to no effort to make it look like this is any problem for him. He's just casually putting his arm out like da, da, da.
Right. He's hailing a cab. Like, oh,
Yeah.
taxi.
A bat cab.
Oh, don't tempt them. They'll put that in one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing that really, really sticks in my craw, though, in this minute, and I was trying to see if there's some way to forgive it, or maybe I'm not seeing something. So he holds up his wrist, shoots off this grappling hook, and then he says, like, oh, hang on to my belt. And that next shot, that grappling hook is nowhere to be seen. Like, it's not coming out of either of his arms. I thought, like, oh, maybe he's attaching it to his belt. He's not. Like, you see, he's reaching around, but it looks like he's just sort of, it's just him reaching around. He's not doing anything. And it's just a real blatant continuity error. And it's been a couple of times they've done it, particularly with the grappling hooks, where it's like, yeah, you fire them, and then they're just like magic tractor beams that just sort of draw people in. You don't have to actually follow the realistic science of what it would be to have a thing in your hand to haul you up somewhere and stuff. It really irked me because it's like, just put a string somewhere to show that he's holding on to something.
Yeah, it's like video game logic almost, where it's just like, okay, as long as you did the thing in time, then it'll just take you to kind of a cut scene, and you'll make it to the next level, and you don't have to worry about the actual getting there part. It's like, yeah, well, the details don't matter. As long as you did the thing in time. You hit the right button to launch the grappling hook and then grab onto the belt, and now you don't have to worry about the rest for a minute.
I think that was the brief for this whole movie. Was like, the details don't matter. It's fine.
I'm pretty certain though that must have been just like a random shot they had of them.
Yeah,
and they're like, just ADR in, hold on to my belt, and that was
yeah. I was thinking about, like, I probably would have perished here, because if I'm falling, even if it's Batman, like if I'm falling, like if I just fell off a thing, the whole thing I'm on had collapsed, and somebody was just like, grab onto my belt, I would have to be like, wait, what? Wait, did you just say grab onto your belt? Like, I think I would hesitate too much, and then like the grappling hook would go, and I would be left behind because I'd be like, oh, belt, and then I'd be falling to my death. Because my last words would be like, oh, belt.
I can't understand what people are saying at the best of times. So yeah, exactly. That'd be me.
You'd be kind of like, the anxiety of your mind would be like, what if I grab onto his belt and that's not what he said? And he's like, what the hell are you doing? Like,
and the belt comes off.
Yeah.
I'm guessing this is like the belt of steel. That's just like, oh yeah, that thing. It's just like nothing can shift it. He's overcompensated from way back when we did season 1. There's this famous shot of Batman doing the hero turn, where he spins around and the Joker's come in with that, in the air, Junior Batman. And we had on Kiri Callaghan that time, and she became fascinated by when Batman spins around, his belt like falls down.
Oh yeah, when it like jiggles. Yeah,
and like maybe that was a thing. They're like, don't ever let that belt move again in any future movies. So like Batman's got this thing welded to his hip, basically.
It's screwed into the hip bone.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, we saw, like, in the last minute with Bane's tube getting knocked out. Like, you need to have these things fastened on. So, Batman, you're never going to catch me with my pants down. Literally.
He'll blow people up by dynamite in the pants, like in Batman Returns, but his pants won't be coming down.
Oh, maybe that's why he's really insecure. He's like, I don't want anyone ever putting dynamite in my pants. Is like some sort of weird karmic justice. So, I'm going to make sure these things are just fastened.
Right. Every single thing that he does to a villain, he's got to make sure that doesn't happen to him. He's like, okay, well, that worked against them, so I gotta somebody might do that to me, so I gotta make sure that won't happen.
Oh yeah, that's the thing, because the word gets out then, like, oh, Batman defeated such and such a villain by doing this one thing, so then they all know it's a tactic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Got to mix it up.
That's why all the grappling hooks, because we've actually had a whole thing since the show began about like, yeah, the Batman villain's greatest enemy is always gravity, because that's how he took out the Joker. That's how he took out, like, well, a couple times Catwoman falls off things and returns. The Penguin falls into his weird sewage, toxic waste stuff. Two-Face falls off a thing. Actually, Mr. Freeze, we forgot to mention it the other week, also falls off a thing. That seems to be kind of the end of him as well. And but I guess Batman says to have like 15 grappling hooks on you at all times, because it worked on all of them, but I'm never letting it happen to me. Yeah, that's always with the villains. It is always kind of like, well, if they hadn't been villains, I guess this wouldn't have happened to them. So it's always kind of their own fault.
It is. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Should ask too, Pete, because you, of course, your moniker being Pete the Retailer and having worked in a geek shop. Do you remember any particular pieces of Batman merch that have come across your path where you just thought, like, what the hell is this? Like, what is this? Why does this thing exist?
Most of them, probably.
Along with Star Wars, it is like must be the most merchandised franchise in terms of, like, you can buy like a Batman hamster cage and stuff like this.
It wasn't restricted necessarily to Batman, but I feel like Batman got the brunt of it because there was this push. When I was working in the store, which was mainly late 90s into the early 2000s, like the action figure industry was kind of about to change. Like, they were grasping at straws to figure out what, like they were still focused on selling to kids mostly. Now it's all, mostly selling to adult collectors. Well, theoretically it's the same people who just got older, but they were kind of grasping at straws, trying to figure out, okay, what could we do to keep selling? Like, the problem with Batman is that once you sell a kid a Batman toy, like, he's got Batman, and it's you can kind of keep making villains and stuff, but like, how do we get him to keep buying Batman, essentially?
Oh yeah.
And so they went into all these ridiculous. I think the most notorious one that I can remember was like Viking Assault Batman or something like that, where it was like. It was completely illogical, where it was just like, what? Like, what? And they would just take Batman and just kind of dress him in whatever ridiculous stuff and then include that in the wave of figures. They throw in like one or two new villains, but then these like weird Batman, from this, and again, it's the kind of thing they make fun of in Lego Batman, which is one of the great parts, where he's going through all the different outfits and it, absolutely, it's kind of stuff that, would happen in the comics where they would be like, oh, he's, going on like, there's the one where he's wearing like a rainbow outfit because he was trying to distract people and like all this other ridiculous stuff. But the fact that they were just kind of going off on their own and making it, I feel like, I don't know, they just went off the deep end with that. And again, and it showed, because then that's the stuff that sat on the shelves for forever. And I think, probably combined with, this movie kind of, tanking relatively and kind of the Batman craze of 1989 finally kind of gasping its last breath before it kind of came back a couple of years later in a new form. But I just clearly remember these weird, like, I think there's like Crusader Batman, like there's all these like weird, like trying to make these like historical missions, and nobody was buying it, literally.
It's so weird, like that. I think that's probably like the end of that type of era, but toys used to just be random nonsense. I know now it tends to be like, well, this is from this specific comic, or this is from this specific movie. When I was younger, it was just, what can we come up with? It doesn't have to relate to anything.
Yeah
Right.
You get like sous chef Batman. I mean, the Turtles were really notorious for it, where it's like,
oh yeah,
here's, Donatello, but he's dressed up as a dustman, or, Picasso or something like that.
Yeah. Right around the same time. So similar thing. I just, again, we had, then they started crossing them over with each other and making weird, like, there's like, oh, here's, Leonardo, but he's in Star Trek. And it's like, wait, what?
Although nowadays, though, like back then, you're like, come on, this is too far. But there's a thing, I'm sure, I think it costs like a fair amount, like over here in particular. And from there was a Batman versus the Turtles movie that we talked about during the hiatus. Great movie, actually. And there's a bit where Michelangelo is wearing Batman's cowl and sitting on top of the dinosaur in, the Batcave. And like as soon as I saw it, I was like, I want a toy of that. And you can get that toy, but it's like, oh, that's going to cost you like $150 or something.
Oh, I was going to say I'll get you it for your birthday, but maybe not.
No, I think it's because they know it's such a niche thing that people of a certain age will want. And it's like, oh, God damn it.
Well, I think that's the difference, is the toys I'm talking about that were just silly nonsense back then were for kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas now, I would argue that most of the, I won't call them toys, most of the action figures they sell aren't really marketed to children.
No.
No.
I don't even know if I call them action figures. I think it's like collectibles now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't even take them out of the box.
I found the line. It's called the Legends of the Batman line. This is the one specific ones that I was talking about, I guess. They came out in 94, 95, and 96. And it's like, it's sort of Crusader Batman, Cyborg Batman, a whole bunch of, Nightwing as Batman, it looks like. Buccaneer Batman, Crusader Robin, to go through Crusader Batman. There's First Mate Robin, to go with your Buccaneer Batman. Longbow Batman, Samurai Batman. Then eventually they get into these 2-packs, Egyptian Batman and Egyptian Catwoman. Pirate Batman
cool.
Egyptian Catwoman makes total sense.
Yeah.
Pirate Batman and Pirate Two-Face. It's a pretty ridiculous set, and that's clearly I can see the ones that I'm looking at. The images here just look like they're shelf worn just from being like, okay, nobody wanted these.
They were there for years.
What is the line between Buccaneer Batman and Pirate Batman? Like, surely it's the same thing.
You would think.
Oh, Niall, you clearly know nothing about life at sea.
Oh, the Laughing Man Joker is like the pirate Joker, and he looks pretty swanky. He's got like a big floppy kind of pirate hat and a big. I'm digging this look here.
Wow.
I know what we're buying with the Patreon money now.
See, now it's out there like my evening now. It's like, I have to look up this whole toy line to see what am I missing out on here. I did look in briefly to myself. Throughout, the search for Batman merchandise. And, as you go into, again, like that hamster cage thing is real. You can buy a Batman themed hamster cage. It's just annoying thing is, it's just a hamster cage with pictures of Batman on it. It's not like they made like a Gotham City or something that the hamster could run around.
That would be cool.
No, that would actually take effort.
Yeah. But the thing is then, like, the internet is a dark and disturbing place. When you're looking for like weird Batman merchandise, like on Etsy, there's what do they call them, like Hanky Panky Ceramics is selling some stuff of Batman that I mean, it's for a very very niche audience, I guess. Some people will
I can imagine.
Yeah, selling a particular item that many people use to pleasure themselves, I'd say. And it rhymes with a character from The Hobbit. And the weird thing is, it's just a normal one of those, but it's got Batman's head on the end.
Oh.
And the weirdest thing to it was like, that's Val Kilmer's Batman too. It's very specifically Val
that's
Kilmer.
The one you want, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's the one with a very specific interest.
Yeah, that's the thing. Maybe that is a really bespoke item. It's like someone specifically wanted Val Kilmer's Batman, but that batsuit does get used a lot though, because that was what Christian Bale auditioned in. Was Val Kilmer's batsuit, and then it pops up a bunch of times. Like Will Arnett wore it to when he was promoting like the Lego Batman movie, or maybe just been the Lego movie. I think he came out at the Oscars to sing "Everything Is Awesome," and he did that "Darkness, No Parents," and he was in the Val Kilmer batsuit and stuff. But then this week, which I thought was particularly odd, Robert Pattinson said that he auditioned. Once he got to the point of like, well, let's see how you look in the suits.
Right.
He auditioned in George Clooney's Batman outfit.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like, you think they would just burn all that. So they're like, get that out of here. We don't want any affiliations with Batman and Robin.
I do hope it is. It's like the Batcave, where it's like, you can go in and you just punch in a different code, and they're all on like a dry cleaner rack, almost like kind of going around, and you can be like, well, you can wear this one, or you can wear this one. Like, well, having
that's
that
how
choice.
I picture the Warner Brothers like archives.
Yeah, totally. I know it's not like that, but I can still picture it as long as it's in my head.
Well, I was more surprised that like it's because you would know from like the history of the puppets in Star Wars. Like a lot of them now are just like they just rotted to dust.
Yeah, poor Max Rebo is just a bag of blue dust.
Oh no!
But I was kind of surprised that like, is the Clooney Batman suit like 25 years later? That's just rubber. Like, is it still good? Like, or is it like, oh yeah, he looked like a zombie Batman? Like, it was this horrible, decrepit monster Batman came out. But with this upcoming movie, it kind of looks like maybe that's what they're going for.
I guess because it's just like a shell. It's not. It doesn't have to sort of have the feel of a real living creature, which has to be, full of other materials and things and hold a shape.
Yeah.
I guess it's a suit. You put it on, it takes your shape, right?
Yeah,
a little bit.
It's the foam that deteriorates the most, right? So if it's just the exterior, I mean, maybe there's some foam, I'm sure there's shaping, the extra muscles and stuff. Yeah. The 9-pack. That's all kind of in foam to a certain extent, but some of it might just be sculpted rubber, which I'm assuming would hold up better.
Yeah. Although something that doesn't hold up better in the minute is this telescope. I have a question. Why does it explode?
It's an action movie, John.
Yeah.
Also, I should say as well before we move on, because it really struck me that like we've mentioned this season too, that George Clooney, because the Batsuit infamously, like it's hard to get out of, you can't just nip to the toilet. And he said many times that he just openly urinated while he was in the Batman suit because he was just like, it just saves time, just let it happen, and then just let it all come out at the end. So I don't wonder if Robert Pattinson, was he aware of that? Or I'm like, I think I'm standing in like 25-year-old Clooney urine. But
that's an honor.
I don't know, maybe that's...
probably. That might be... Most people would be probably okay with that.
Yeah.
Not most people, but, I don't know.
I think I would be. If someone says, do you want to stand in that? I'd be like, okay, let's go. Yeah. Let's do it.
It's not, like it's better than... like 2-day-old George Clooney pee, I'd be like, no, I don't want to do that. But if it's like 20 years ago, George Clooney peed here, I'd be like, oh, okay. Everything's calmed down a little bit now. I'm sure, whatever germs have died, they've all moved on.
This is how the whole Corona thing started.
Exactly.
Yeah. But sorry, John, you go the telescope exploding.
Well, I just can't wrap my head around it. Like, I think the answer, Niall, is what you said. It's an action movie. It explodes. Right. Would a telescope explode? I don't think so. I think it was rigged. I think it was an inside job, man.
Now this is where you get the notes from the listeners saying like, well, I'm an astronomer, and obviously all telescopes are full of volatile gas because it creates, their light refraction is better. But I don't know.
Yeah. If that's true, I mean, let me know. I'm happy to accept that I'm wrong. I just
when you
can't imagine it.
You start saying that, Peter, I'm like, okay, he seems like he knows what he's talking about. Like,
right,
so
I could have just made that up. But like, well, actually, they fill most.
I feel now like I'll never know. It was like, was he telling the truth? Like, what? What was that?
Wow. Niall, you'll have to throw a telescope out of your window to see.
Yeah, we'll do some tests. First, I'm going to grab onto my belt.
Yeah.
But like that shot in particular, as it goes down, because they were doing such a good job last week when it started to fall. It looked like holy crap, because that was they built this thing. Like this was a 75-foot high, 20,000 pound giant telescope that they made because people had to run around on it and stuff. And then when it's coming out there, like, oh yeah, this all looks very realistic. And then once it's going down to the ground, that really looks like you could pick up a microscope in like your high school lab and just drop that in the floor. It would look exactly the same. Like it was very clearly like that is a prop telescope falling into, and then this huge explosion, which was kind of like appropriate enough, kind of like the original Death Star blowing up. They wanted to do a redo of this now, where this random wave comes out of it or whatever. Just
shockwave.
Not in my version, Niall. That doesn't happen in my Star Wars. I have the despecialized ones.
But anywho, before we go down that rabbit hole, so telescope lands, blows up, and that's hopefully there wasn't anyone too close to that mountain, because again, 75-foot, 200,000 pound telescope. Oof. Crashing and exploding. That's going to do a lot of damage. So hopefully there was like this mountainside is like a good couple of 1,000 feet away from Gotham City itself.
Plus there's, I'm sure that there's the people who like the scientists, not the ones here, the ones from falling down. But the other, like, there got to be other people who were just like, okay, next week we're finally going to get all going to be in alignment. We're going to get to our telescope and we're going to get the final readings so we can prove that this, this scientific hypothesis that they've been working on forever. And then like the telescope blows up the week before they use it.
Devastating.
It's enough to turn somebody into a supervillain, maybe. If they're a scientist who's angry at at Batman for blowing up the telescope that they were going to use to do this, so they become some kind of like astronomy themed supervillain.
Well, that's what Marvel would do now, isn't it? It's like, well, you got to set up your next set of villains.
Exactly.
So here you go.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for that payoff from The Incredible Hulk with Tim Blake Nelson as Samuel Stearns. They're like, he's going to become the leader in the next movie. He's like, that was like 15 years ago, man. Like, where the hell is he?
I think we're the only people still remembering that film.
give it time. He's got to grow his head. So.
But yeah, so then Batman just leaves these guys, the two scientists, on the side of the mountain there. So
I hate this bit as well. I've been very negative this episode. I'm normally the positive one, but as he zooms away, they go, "Thank you, Batman." It's like so unnecessary.
Yeah,
but I hate it. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, but they would do that in the '60s one.
Yeah, totally,
yeah,
100% to do it in the '60s one. There is a part of me that does wish, because these people were so involved in making the telescope, that they would be like, oh man, the telescope's ruined. It's like,
yeah,
my life has no point now. I might as well jump anyway.
Yeah, should have just let me fall.
Life isn't worth it without the telescope.
No, there are moments in the novelization, because they really push the idea that Batman is supposed to be like an urban legend, mysterious creature of the night. So instead of the whole "thank you, Batman," they're just like, holy, Batman actually exists. And they're like, I thought you were made up. And he's just like, ugh, and just flies away. And it's like, that's more my speed of Batman, where he's just like, okay, whatever. And he's just out of there straight away. But
but this Batman has to do little funny lines, doesn't he? As he goes up. On his way past, he picks up Batman and Batgirl and Robin. Literally picks them up, and just goes, "Need a ride?"
Right.
To be fair, though, that would be pretty hard to fight the temptation to say that.
Well,
need a lift at least would be like,
right.
Oh, actually, yeah, that works even better. That's great.
Probably a little bit. Well, he probably kicked himself afterwards. He's like, I should have said lift. Damn.
He's been hanging around Arnold Schwarzenegger too much, and.
It just reminds me too of it's like one of the cheesiest moments of Hannibal, the TV show, which is like, it's got its cheesy moments, but it's usually pretty impeccable. But just has that bit at the end, like the last episode where he's escaping and he just pulls up to Will Graham and he's just like, going my way. It's just,
yeah.
I remember seeing that, been like, oh, come on. I mean, I get it, but come on,
I love it. I have no problem with that. So really, I shouldn't have a problem with this. But there you go. Actually, the draft has a little bit of extra dialogue here. Just a couple of lines. When they land, which we'll talk about in a minute, because that's awful as well.
That's the shot.
Yeah, Jesus. Robin goes, "Winded, old-timer?" And Batman says, "Don't make me kill you in front of the girl."
Ooh, well, that escalated. Jeez,
well,
yeah. It's like, that's a bit too much. I think maybe you need to cool it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that their relationship was fully understood at that point. Huh? Or maybe it is. Maybe we're reading something else into it that's not there.
Yeah.
I think because they already did the thing too about like, well, we have to get, she knows who we are. I guess we're going to have to kill her. We'll kill her later. It's not like, will you guys stop talking about killing people?
In this fun kids film.
Yeah.
Although the Winded Old Timer one, I actually would quite enjoy, because it is just like, that suits Robin's character, like the kind of cheekiness of this, cocky teenage asshole. Like, totally. I wouldn't have minded that, but yeah, the to then jump to like, don't make me kill you in front of the girl.
I think it's meant to be him being silly and funny, but yeah, reading it like on the screen here, it doesn't come across that way. It comes across a little unhinged.
No. He grabs him by the throat, John.
Don't make me kill you.
Swear to me. No, we'll get there.
Oh, but let's talk about this landing.
Stick the landing.
Yeah. Okay. I know, obviously, It's still kind of the early days of CGI. I get that. But is this the best they could do? A lot of the effects in this have been okay so far.
I scrubbed it back and forth a little bit, trying to figure out if it is. I don't know that it is CGI. Right? I think it's like a weird.
Yeah, I don't know what. I'm trying to wrap my head around it myself. I couldn't find anything in like the bonus materials really talking about it.
Yeah.
Something's off with the shot.
It feels like they filmed them doing a jump and then they kind of like moved it in post.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, okay.
But then their movements with jump don't look right.
But that's because I think, it's like they weren't jumping up onto something. They were doing a weird, like there's a weird angle that isn't, I'm scrubbing through it right now. And it does seem like maybe where they like falling off something and they played it backwards, or there's something weird and off about it that it's like, I think it's like the angle that they filmed it at is completely different than the angle that they're inserting it into the shot, or something weird like that, where it's just like, what? That's not how physics works with people.
And it's one of those as well where the colors, to me, unless it's just my screen, the colors on them look different. They're off as well.
Right.
You can see that they've been sort of put into the scene. It doesn't even blend remotely.
Well, the thing that reminds me the most of, just in terms of like this odd composition, is weirdly enough the climax of Batman '89, where it didn't bother me, for years as a kid, because you just had like it's grainy VHS. But that shot of the Joker when he's falling off the church tower, and it's clearly they've just sort of rotoscoped Jack Nicholson's face on to some random thing dropping, and it's just like, that looks awful. But for years I was like, it's great. But I think a long time growing up, I would have been like, yeah, that's fine, whatever. But now there's so many questions in terms of like, okay, one, again, speaking of '89, where, he had to gauge how much Vicky Vale weighed, and it threw off his whole grappling hook thing. Now he's just carting up, two people.
That's another reason why he attached the belt even tighter, stronger.
But now he's got like,
screw it right into the hips.
Two extra people who are like, 100 odd pounds each. And then, their suits alone weigh 50 pounds, and then he's got his own suit. And it's like, somehow he's managed to haul all that up, and to such a force that they go flying into the air. But even then, it's like, well, the grappling hooks went through these walls like, they went through paper, basically. And you don't see where they're not holding anything when they get up. It's just like, it might as well be like Spider-Man's web shooters. It's like, just let go and forget about it whenever you're done. It's like, well, this grappling hook should have a thing attached to it, though. It's a piece of equipment that he has on his arm. So this is just real, like, they could have saved themselves the money. They've just done a shot of them sort of like climbing up out of the hole and been like, they attached it somewhere down there and now they're back up or something. But
there's some kind of physics equation that would make somebody's head hurt here, because it's like he's falling down and shoots the grappling hooks with enough force that they can punch right through that metal, the ceiling, the walls, whatever. And then pull him and two other people back up and not tear right back through that metal, you know what I mean? Or whatever it's going through. And then pick up drop those people, pick up two other people with enough force to flip them over. It's a bizarre, again, it's Batman. It's best not to think about it. And I'm fine not thinking about it. Like I don't like the phrase turn off your brain, but there's a certain, like allowance, all right, if you make it fun and interesting, whatever, it doesn't have to, I don't have to sit there and be like, no. But I feel like this fails a little bit at that if you just make it like, if it seems off, then you're going to start thinking about it. So if you just, throw in something to make it like, oh, okay, well, that's the way it works, and that's fine,
Yeah, because we can buy that, because, Batman's got technology we're not fully aware of. Okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
I guess you could be like, well, in the last movie, he did attach a grappling hook to like a 2-ton safe, and it somehow just swung it back into the bank. Okay, so I guess lifting two other people would be like, it'd be nothing to him. He already has that technology. But
that's true.
Right.
Yeah. It's but of course, though, we find out then that all hope is lost. For it's midnight and the telescope's destroyed. There's no way to thaw the city.
No, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Also, come on, we say this constantly for the past 2 weeks. They've got to be out of time now. People have been frozen. How long have they been frozen? What was it supposed to be originally?
11 minutes.
11 minutes.
You tell me that whole them doing that fight in the street in the Bat Toys thing that would have taken about 20 minutes in and of itself. Then climbing up to the telescope, having the whole fight with Mr. Freeze, all of that, and it's still not been 11 minutes. Those people, the city is dead, Bruce. Just give up. But anyway.
Which, again, that would be a good, kind of like the, maybe the end of Beneath the Planet of the Apes or something, where you get through the whole thing and then it turns out the city is all dead because they're all frozen, and then where do you go from there? And then you have to figure out the next sequel. I had just read it. I didn't even realize at the time that they were planning another Schumacher sequel to this. Yeah. I just read about it today because I was like, I hadn't heard about that. And I think maybe that's because being so steeped in the nerd retail at the time, I was just kind of shut up about that stuff. I was beforehand, a couple of years earlier, I would have totally been, reading Comic Scene and all this other stuff and being like, they're going to make another one of these. But I think just being having that experience of seeing all the unsold Pogs and the Pirate Batman 2-pack and all this stuff, I was just shut up about Batman. Don't ever talk to me about that guy again.
This is the first time since then you've been able to speak up about Batman.
Exactly. Yeah. It's nice to come back to it and be like, I kind of would have liked to seen that.
I
feel like
you getting that email now, but Batman. Now that's a name I've not heard in a long time.
A long time. Yeah, I mean, it sounds ridiculous to me now. Sounds odd for me to say, but I'm like, I would like to see that sequel. It's one of the things. I would love a time machine just purely for or a dimensional traveling apparatus, just purely to pop into the. Oh, here's the alternate universe where they did make the one with Coolio. And here's the. Here's the alternate universe where they, William Catt and what's her name played Luke and Leia. Just go into all the alternate universes where it's just one little decision and be like, oh, all right, that's interesting.
It is a
Look
shame.
At that world.
It is a shame they didn't keep making these. I think, okay, people have strong opinions on this one, mostly negative, although I defend it. But you know what? Considering what comes afterwards, I mean, obviously there's a period of good stuff, the original X-Men movies, everyone likes them. But considering what we then end up with, which a lot of movies now are just joyless. At least these are fun. Everyone's having a good time except for George Clooney.
I like your idea though of it ending Beneath the Planet of the Apes, though, Pete, because then you can do the next one would be Batman then escapes and goes back in time. And then the next movie is Viking Crusade Batman. And then you just start making one of quantum leaping him.
There you go.
You just make a movie about each of those toys. We're there you go. Now you got Buccaneer Batman. And see what the difference is between him and Pirate Batman.
They're talking about redoing Quantum Leap, aren't they?
Apparently so, yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, let's mix Batman in there somehow.
Why not? Crossover.
I don't know. I remember hearing that news. It's I imagine a lot of Quantum Leap because he is jumping into, bodies of different genders and different races and stuff. I'm sure that show is, probably not dated well in a lot of ways. So I feel like they're going to have to be really jumping through hoops these days. Well, how do we do this in a way that is not going to come off as offensive in some regard? But
but I think you could. I think you could easily do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all the notes I got for minute 112. But you guys have anything else you want to throw on the dockets or
noted out here?
No, that was. I think we covered the scientists falling down the hill quite a bit.
But yeah, Pete, before we go, because Batman and Robin is so reviled as one of the worst movies ever made, we are asking the guests what the worst movie they've ever seen is. So. I'm genuinely curious to hear what you might have there.
Well, I had a hard time thinking of what, I have a hard time kind of saying that unilaterally. You know what I mean? I think I noted two movies that I had a terrible experience with, which might not be I think neither of them are the fault of the movie, maybe. So I'm not going to pin it on the movie, but I had high hopes. I went to a press screening of the movie Kingpin.
Oh yeah.
And I was, I have a weird history with bowling that I'm not great at it, but it's my group of friends. We have an odd attachment to bowling, and so I was like, oh, this movie could be funny, and just the something about the crowd that was there and the way they were reacting to the most like lowbrow, most base humor, like expected, jokes that you could see coming a mile away. I was like, is this what? Like, I had a kind of, moment of crisis. I was like, is this where we're at as a society? Like, I almost walked out, and I was like, so that's usually what I refer to as one of my least favorite movies. And again, I don't know how much of it is the movie's fault.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen that probably since it came out, and I remember I liked it. I bought it on like VHS or something, and I enjoyed it. But I think I was the right age to just like some stupid, rubbish, terrible comedy. So if I watched it now, I think I'd be like, oh no.
Yeah,
I think I was exactly the right age to be like, I'm so much better than this garbage. That.
Yeah. So I grew up like, I have a thing for the Farley brothers because, like, I was like 11 when There's Something About Mary came out. Like Dumb and Dumber, absolutely loved that when I was a kid. But the last time I watched Dumb and Dumber, I was sitting going like, if I saw this the age I am now for the first time, I am positive I would hate it. Like,
yeah.
But it's just because it got me when I was like, 9 or whatever. So.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too. That I didn't, I think I saw Dumb and Dumber. Like, my friend recommended. He's like, oh, it's funny, Dumb and Dumber. We watched it. It was probably college, and I was just like, I don't. Again, probably right around the same time where I'm just like, thinking that I'm too good for all this stuff anyway. So like, I already walk in with an attitude, and then it's like, if it's not clicking at that,
yeah,
like if I went and watched it for the first time now, I might be more open to it. But I think at the time I was very much like, oh, I'm my highbrow sensibilities are offended.
I don't think you would be open to it. Honestly, it's I've never been a fan of it, and I think, Niall, you hate me for that.
It almost destroyed the podcast on several occasions.
It did.
But conversely, on the other, the shoe on the other hand, the some movies that people think are some of the worst, I thoroughly enjoy. So I'm also not the best judge of that, because I love Ishtar, I love The Black Hole, I love, and not ironically, I genuinely
we
remember this moment of first, I think probably in the early 90s, or high school or college or something, and hearing somebody make a joke about Ishtar, and I was like, wait a minute, people don't like that movie? Like, what? Like, that was hilarious. What? And then it the more people talked about it, the more I had to dig in and be like, no, it's good, watch.
I agree with you. Like, I think we put it on together, didn't we, now, actually, when you were around my house, because we heard how bad it was. Oh, let's watch it ironically. But I remember sitting there like thinking, this is actually pretty fun. I'm enjoying this movie, genuinely.
It might have been a reaction to, like, it had this spiraling budget, and then it was like, little box office return gave it a reputation. But like, because my main memory of Ishtar is from the Gary Larson Far Side cartoon, where they had like Hell's Video Store, and it was just shelves of Ishtar. That was all that they had.
Which he has since released a statement saying, like, actually, I saw Ishtar and it was pretty good.
Hey.
He just did it because it was a joke, and it just became this shorthand joke because the budget and people were not expecting the two stars in a vehicle like that. They had done different kinds of movies. They were expecting them to be in more, serious, dramatic fare or whatever. And also, it doesn't hurt that the same in like the Rambo era of USA kind of jingoism, that they're it's mainly a story about the CIA secretly destabilizing Middle East democracies and kind of the CIA has been essentially the bad guy in it, and so
it's a very interesting
in
plot
1987 that wasn't what people wanted. But also, so see above all the Cabin Boy, The Black Hole, Ishtar, Name a movie that is considered the worst during my lifetime, and chances are I'm like, oh yeah, I like that movie.
Well, maybe Batman and Robin can now join those ranks.
Could be. I got to say, like, if you asked me if I wanted to watch this or one of the Christian Bale Batman movies, I would absolutely choose to watch this right now.
I can see why. Yeah. I mean, I like the Christian Bale ones, don't get me wrong, but you've got to be in a specific mood for those, whereas you could just put this on like a Sunday afternoon, have a bit of fun.
Yeah.
I don't have any. I understand that they're well made, but I just don't think I'm ever in the mood to watch one of the Christian Bale movies.
I think they're like, I love them, but they are like exhausting. Like, at the end of them, you're just like, oh, like it feels like you're running a marathon because they're so big and they're so long and there's so much stuff happens.
Heavy stuff as well.
Yeah, it's really like the Dark Knight just doesn't let up. Like it just keeps just going at like 100 miles per hour the whole way through until you're just like, oh boy, like, thank God the credits started because I love that. But Jesus.
Well, speaking of letting up, we should probably let up.
Of course, yes.
We will head off into the dark night. Pete, I'm sure everybody knows this, but would you like to tell our listeners where you can be found online, just on the odd chance that they haven't heard your shows?
It's entirely possible and likely. I'm one of the hosts of Star Wars Minute. So it's starwarsminute.com. You can get to our show there where we do this kind of a thing, but for all the Star Wars movies. We're currently doing individual episodes as of this recording, we're doing individual episodes for each of the episodes of the Book of Boba Fett, but we'll be back before too long with episodes about Solo, a Star Wars story. And then I also do a show called ABCDTOS, where we're going alphabetically through all of the Star Trek, the original series episodes. And that's another weekly thing, abcdtos.com. And I think PeteTheRetailer.com has links to all these things, but I only go back and check on it and update it when somebody tells me that something's wrong. So hopefully that still is working.
Well, let Pete know, everyone. Let him know. Go check it out. And check us out on all the usual Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just look up Bat Minute. We're everywhere on there. And why not head to our network, Sleepy Charlie Media's Patreon page, because just for like $2 you can get extra wonderful, lovely bonus material. And we will be back for the next minute, and we will have a new guest. Ooh, see you then, Batmites.
Next time, Here Comes the Sun. Amidst upside-down discussions and casual misogyny, a sorceress with Cerbers harnesses some space junk technology. But as our awesome oracle orchestrates the satellites with her keyboard-clattering claws, can this solar laser secure a citywide thaw? There's a new hope coming for the city on the edge of Batman Forever. Same Bat Pod, different Bat Minute.
We'll be back.